You on?
This is a two-camera thing. This is very intimidating.
Yeah.
Were you going to ask the question, or I just start talking?
You just start talking.
Okay. I think our service immersion trips affect our students regardless of the trip in some sort of common fundamental ways. The purpose of them is to take them out of a familiar element, and that's to begin to get them to understand someone else's context. And I'll speak in particular about Urban Plunge because that's the one I'm most familiar with. Even though it's a very, in terms of location, a very close place, it's a very different place for most of our students. And what they get out of immersing themselves in any community, and in that one in particular, is that they sort of have to drop the barriers that are a natural part of life, but very often keep us from experiencing some of the best things in life, and that would be obviously relationship with others, and in particular relationship with other people that are very different and have very different experience than we do. So I think all the service trips, while there's an education piece, you learn something about the cultures, you learn things about different languages, you learn lots of things. I think the immersion in potential relationship with those that our students are serving is the most important aspect of all of these trips. I think how it impacts students, varies from person to person, and the level of introspection and reflection that they are naturally able to do. Some guys, they go on a trip and it changes their life, and it's something that is just a part of them from that moment forward. Other students, it takes a little time for the immersion experience to sort of settle in, and for them to process it, and for it to have an effect, if it has an effect on them. A lot of that has to do with the student's previous experience and the trip. Each trip is slightly different, but I think that's.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought there towards the end, but
doesn't matter.
Second question was Catholic social teaching principles or
social justice
social
stuff.
Justice issues,
How do you live it? Do you find it's difficult as a
very imperfectly,
yeah.
Because especially as someone I'm passionate about that, and it's something I spend a lot of time talking about regardless of what class I'm teaching. I even mention it in computer lit. The reality of that in the classroom, and then going home and using paper towels and using plastic garbage bags and having TV and appliances and all these things, every now and then I'm faced with the feeling of a little bit of hypocrisy. Like I'm a consumer. I know I consume a greater percentage of things than I am probably entitled to, but I get them simply because nice pants.
Oh, sorry. This is my office.
It's not.
I'm going to start that part over. I'm often faced with the conflict between teaching social justice issues and living social justice issues. It's the little ones where I feel like I have the most struggles. The big one in my life, I have a son who was born with special needs, and that sort of brings a lot of things into stark focus, and I have to pay attention to those things, and I want to pay attention to those things. So in that regard, that part is sort of built into my life. I can't ignore and would never ignore that area and aspect of social justice. The smaller day-to-day stuff, driving, the choice between what do I drive. I have an affordable car. It's not very fuel efficient. I often drive just by myself in the car, and while that seems like a sort of unimportant thing in the grand scheme of things, especially when we're talking about social justice as it impacts everyone and not just my local community, that is an issue. It is a problem. Living in the part of the world where we live, it is very difficult to authentically and honestly live according to social justice values with regard to consumption of goods and material things. I also think because of place where we live, we have the most ability to sort of act on them. We have access to some of the most influential people on the planet. And so it's a unique spot that we live in Fairfield County. We have the obvious example of the poor and those in need, and the obvious advantages of those that have. So we're at a point where we can act on social justice, and I do it imperfectly all the time.